Hi everyone, my name is Gilles Muller. Don't worry, my name is very often mispronounced in Germany, so that's fine. So today I'm going to be talking about our climate strategy, so the climate strategy at Axel Springer in particular. We have had very good insights and a lot of insights today, so I'm not sure how much more I can add to this, but I hope to keep it as exciting as possible, also considering that this is the second to last presentation. Axel Springer, for those of you who don't know it or are not that familiar with it, it's a media and technology company. So it has four main components. You have national news media, which is with the most prominent or well-known brands being Bild and Welt. You have news media international, with the most prominent or well-known brands being Insider, Business Insider, but also Politico since 2021. You have also classifieds media. Most of you or some of you may know Stepstone, which is like a job portal kind of similar to Glassdoor. You have Idealo, which is a price comparison platform. And we also have marketing media with the most well-known brand being Awin. So, looking at the agenda for today, I'm first going to introduce how we go about our sustainability journey, talking a bit about our governance structure and what the benefits of it are, maybe have some key takeaways there to make it a bit more relevant. I'm going to be talking a bit about our materiality analysis that we conducted in 2021. We also have to conduct a new one next year, considering European sustainability reporting standards, which is also going to be relevant for a lot of us, I reckon. And then we are moving on to the fun part of the presentation, which is CO2 reduction, and also the most relevant part. And I very much hope that the path and also the experience we have had is going to be relevant, or there's going to be relevant insights to some of you. To assume full responsibility of our footprint, we also have to compensate our emissions, to compensate those emissions that still remain at the end of the day. And then we are going to look ahead what's going to happen in the next couple of months and years. Governance structure. We manage sustainability both centrally and decentrally. Axel Springer has sort of a complex structure, right? So we are our department is in the holding of Axel Springer in Berlin. You have the CEO of Axel Springer, Matthias Döpfner, which is also the chairman of the executive board. Below him, you have the director of corporate communications and sustainability, and he is also part of our executive operational sustainability department. We have the head of sustainability, a sustainability data analyst, and then there's me, the sustainability manager. And being part of the corporate communications and sustainability department is kind of advantageous for us as well, because the director maintains a very close relationship to the executive board. So everything we do on an operational level gets to the board level quite swiftly. But again, Axel Springer, big company, a lot of subsidiaries, a lot of units. So doing it, the 3 FTEs of us in the sustainability department, not really possible. So luckily for us, we have 5 heads of sustainability throughout the group. We have one for auto build and computer build in Hamburg. We have one for media impact in Berlin as well. We have one for Stepstone in Brussels. We have another one at Idealo, also located in Berlin. And we have one at Ringier Axel Springer, Poland. But these are not all people working on sustainability. A lot of people are still doing it on top of their job, and I very much hope that they can do it as a full-time job for all the more in the future. But yeah, at the moment it's still this picture that you can see here. These are all people fully committed to pushing sustainability forward at Axel Springer. We structure sustainability into 4 clusters. As you can see here, these are just a very normal nominated ESG criteria you have on the financial market. The environment or footprint relates to ecological issues related to the business activities, for example, natural resources and emissions. Admittedly, we report or focus very much on this in our sustainability report, only on our emissions. obviously reporting scopes 1, 2, 3, and also in terms of our emissions cluster. More on that in a second. We have the social component, which relates to issues regarding the society and employees, including their freedom, safety, well-being, and workplace. Sustainability report regards everything around diversity and inclusion, attractive working conditions, social engagement. So, for example, what has Axel done this year, also in terms of the Ukrainian crisis. And then lastly, there's also the governance section of it. So the conscientiousness regarding the company's business activities, such as marketing, purchasing, and anti-corruption. This year, obviously, also for a lot of other companies, the Supply Chain Due Diligence Act has been very relevant, and our corporate procurement department has been fully devoted on preparing the act for next year. But considering that we are a media company, we have a fourth cluster, and actually a very important one, and this is our products and services. So this relates to media-specific aspects of corporate responsibility, for example, journalistic independence, diverse media content, and data ethics. And we refer to this as our brainprint. And the bottom line here is that the brainprint is about how we communicate to society, right? Because as a media company, you have a certain responsibility also to society, how you communicate through your products. And the first three I've mentioned here, so environmental, social, governance, they very much relate to our operational footprint. And I'm going to base most of the presentation today on the operational footprint and also conclude a bit with concluding remarks on the brainprint. Materiality analysis, we conducted that one in 2021, and these 8 topics have been judged material for Axel Springer. They are workplace D&I, journalistic independence, privacy and data security, diversity in media products, climate change and energy, responsible procurement and human rights, training and development, and lastly, integrity and compliance. There you can see how these different topics have also been clustered in the 4 clusters or topic areas I've been talking about in a previous slide. So 2 relate to the social aspect, 3 to the products and services, 1 to the environmental one, and 2 to governance. And we as a sustainability department or corporate sustainability department are mainly focusing still on climate change and energy just because it's this huge topic. But we are also there as a sparring partner for our corporate procurement department, which is focusing a lot on responsible procurement and human rights, but also with the D&I department. We're also exchanging a lot. So this is kind of an old slide. It's a bit better now, but this was kind of a comparison about what is being done at a company, the status quo, with respect to a material topic and the ambition level. And you see for the topics highlighted in red, including climate change and energy and responsible procurement and human rights, it was very bad what we have done, or there was just not a lot happening, but the ambition level was very high. And luckily, this changed a lot actually this year, also at the end of last year, by agreeing on our climate strategy, publishing the climate strategy, but also having worked on the Supply Chain Due Diligence Act. All right, let's get to the fun part. How are we reducing our emissions? So the climate strategy was set to motivate the industry at large, actually, because a lot of media firms, they're actually looking at Axel Springer and looking at what we are actually doing in terms of climate strategy. You probably, or the 4 steps you see here probably ring a bell. Right, so these are the standard steps you have to take when implementing and conceiving of a climate strategy. It all starts with the measurement. You have to know what to emit in order to also know what you reduce. And also in order to, you have to reduce, and then what's left you're gonna compensate, as I've mentioned, to assume full responsibility of your carbon footprint. And also at the last point here, we have awareness. This is all about engaging our employeeship in terms of sustainability. How can you increase awareness about the topic as well, but also how are we communicating through our products to society in terms of sustainability. Again, starts with the measurement. In 2019 and 2020, we had 450,000 tons of CO2 equivalents and 390 tons respectively. Here, a quick note. These are the measures we've had last year. And our database actually improved so much by us using much more primary data this year that the footprint of 2020 has reduced from 390,000 tons to 350 tons. So even by just improving your database, you can have a better picture here. And obviously, this is all very theoretical, right? So this is conceived in accordance with the Science-Based Targets Initiative. You see, the goal is here just to reduce year by year through emissions reduction measures your footprint. We expect this to be much more non-linear. I personally anticipate the first round of reduction measures that we implement to have a large impact, be it renewable energy or just a 95% electricity share, and you name it. The goal here is to reduce our emissions between 3 and 5% per year in order to comply with a long-term emissions reduction goal of 90% by 2045. And if we do that, we can term ourselves a net zero company that is on the 1.5 degrees Celsius path. But again, to assume full responsibility, you also have to offset what is left on the bottom. In 2019, I think there was only our front-runner units that compensated their emissions. So that were Idealo and Ringier, Axel Springer, Polska. They are doing a really good job when it comes to sustainability. 2020, there was 6, so Bonial, National Media and Tech, and so on and so forth that joined. And this year, luckily, we increased it to 12 subsidiaries. Obviously, we still have a very long way to go in order to reach 100% of our carbon footprint being offset, but our target is that we offset the 2024 footprint by 2025 then. Here you can see the breakdown of our emissions. You see the emissions classes we have are buildings. This is everything that relates to facility management, employees, corporate travel, home office as well, but also the corporate fleet. We have the print product, obviously, through build, felt, print value chains. You have a lot of emissions there. The digital footprint, which has actually increased this year, just because our digital business has been increased a lot. And then also other emissions that relate to procurement and advertisement. And again, the compensations that you see there. And here for 2024, you see it has to be 100%. At least that's the strategy that's been agreed to by our executive board. And here we are on the right track. You see that our footprint, it has decreased and further decreased this year. And also the amount we are compensating also increases more and more. This is actually the key slide, even though it doesn't look like it. So we have established working groups with respect to the emissions cluster we have, because we on a management level, we can only know so much. We don't know how to reduce emissions in buildings. We don't know how to do it for our employees. We have to include the people that are on the field. We have to include people for buildings, from services and real estate, from our printing facilities. In terms of our employees, it has been people from corporate travel management, corporate fleet. For our websites, it was our tech guys from Axel Springer National Media and Tech. For TV, it was employees working from Bild TV and Welt TV. Print, again, Bild, Welt, printing facilities, And it was a very nice and enjoyable and productive process. So what we did is that we set them up in January. We had bi-weekly meetings with them over the course of 6 months, and we talked with them about what we can actually do in order to reduce our footprint. And here also our data was super helpful, because again, this was based on our emissions clusters. For employees, you could pinpoint where most emissions arose in the past and what we can then do in order to reduce our emissions there. And the same counted for all the other task forces. In April, we had intermediary results, and in July, we had a all hands where all task forces came together and we presented our results. We also presented them to Carnstone, which is our consulting firm based in London. And then we had our board presentations now this month. We had 2 of them, and luckily they agreed to some of the matters we presented them, at least one per task force. And yeah, now it's all about implementing what we came up with. But again, sustainability or emissions reduction is a iterative process. It's not that we have found all solutions for the footprint of Axel Springer. We have to continue this process over and over again over the next couple of years. Just to give you some examples also of reduction measures, just to give you a feeling kind of what's going on. For buildings, the low-hanging fruit was to increase our electricity, the share of green electricity to 95%. Employees, the main measure is to have or implement an internal air travel price, an internal CO2 price for air travel, and that's to nudge employees to use train travel in Germany at least, and not to use air travel in Germany. For websites, we include a CO2 calculator for Earth Week for valuing Earth Week. For TV, we want to increase our knowledge base by having a TV knowledge base in accordance with the Albert Group in the UK. And for print products, we envisage to contact our suppliers and engage with them in order to reduce our emissions there as well. You see also 2 special task forces here at the very end, the Climate Governance Task Force. There we developed just very strategic measures. So it was about ESG bonus schemes, a very important one, also an internal climate journalism network. Because again, I'm talking here a lot about our operational footprints, but especially the German speakers of you know the coverage of Bild and Welt. You know how much needs to be done in order for it to be conformed to the climate emergency. And again, last task force here, responsible ads. That was about cooperating with a startup in order to reduce our emission for ads. This has a lot to do with ad tech, which I'm not going into detail into too much detail in because it's very, very complex as well. All right, very quickly at the end, CO2 compensation. How are we offsetting our emissions? Looking back, or first bit of background, so about CO2 offsetting, I'm not here to lecture you about that because we have had very good presentations on that before, but we use both avoidance and removal credits for our carbon compensation, and we want to establish a voluntary CO2 certificate market internally at Axel Springer. So why is that? The thing is, Axel Springer has more than 250 subsidiaries, and it's so non-efficient if each and every single unit has to go to the process on its own. It's a lot of redundant work because also there's so many suppliers that the supply landscape is super fragmented. Prices are going to increase in the future also because the demand on the compensation market is just going to increase more and more in the coming years. It's a lot of time intensive research. Again, each unit has to make its way through this fragmented supply landscape, complicated contracts, and also reputation dangers if the offsetting is not met with reduction measures. So where do we want to go? We are establishing, or in the finalizing process of establishing our carbon bank. So we want to take the compensation process on the holding level. So yeah, a one-stop shop, so to say, for climate neutrality at Axel Springer. So as I mentioned before, it starts with the calculation, with the measurement. We are doing that anyways. We know our data for entire Axel Springer group, which is in the range of 300,000 and 400,000 tons of CO2 equivalents. Then we are procuring this specific amount with a couple of compensation partners. And the good thing here is that if you procure, or the larger the amount you procure from a compensation partner, normally the better your prices will be for your climate compensation. Then if a unit seeks to offset its emissions, it can simply come to us on a holding level and say, I want to compensate 10,000 tons of CO2 equivalents, my footprint of this particular unit at a particular price. And we can just then, it makes the payment to us and we transfer the certificates which we have bought in steps 2. And then the last step is to simply retire the carbon credits also with the compensation partners once the transfer has been done. And the optional step at the very end is to certify your climate neutrality through TÜV, because if it's only until this step, our units won't be able to call themselves climate neutral. They can say we have measured our carbon footprint and we have compensated it, but we cannot say that it's climate neutral because therefore you have to have a certified database and a certified climate neutralization. All right, what's happening in the next couple of years? And yeah. So this year, we had leadership Q&A to present our climate strategy with all leaders in the Axel Springer sphere. Our climate strategy was published in March. Yeah, take a look at it if you want to sustainability.axelspringer.com. We had our task force results, as I've mentioned, in June with the big all hands and presented it to the board now. So for this year, for the net zero path, we're on a good track, so to say. Next year, albeit we have conceived our climate strategy in line with SBTi, we also need to have our targets approved. And this is going to be the focus of next year because our database, again, it's very much in its starting steps, I want to say. And we have a climate data analyst now, which is very good, but next year we need to get it audit ready by SBTi. And then it's an iterative process, as I've mentioned. We are going to reduce our emissions over the course of the next years until 2045, and hopefully we meet our net zero target. In terms of climate neutrality, we have also every step is done. Carbon bank is set up. Now it's the job of also our subsidiaries to contact us and offset the emissions by means of the carbon bank. Offsetting parts of fiscal year 2022 and 2023, and then reach finally climate neutrality in 2025 for fiscal year 2024, so that all Axel Springer employees will work climate neutrally from now on. Again, it has been, my presentation has been very much focused on the operational footprint, but I want to stress really that we are also focusing on improving our coverage. There's a lot of exchange going on in the US as well. You know, you have Business Insider or Insidering in New York, you have Politico in Washington, and there's a lot of exchange between both brands in terms of the climate coverage, and it's not bad. They have Politico has climate change. You have at Insider you have a newsletter in terms of sustainability conceived with Deloitte, but in Germany we have a long way to go. I'm being 100% frank with that, and the start now is that we have an internal climate journalism network to enable this exchange between journalists. But the next step is also to do it bottom up. We have an Axel Springer Academy of Journalism, so there the importance is to implement a sustainability module so that journalists from the bottom up, when they go into the different brands, that they have already a bit of a sustainability mindset when looking into coverage. And then the last step, the hardest step, frankly, is going to be to train all journalists with at least an hour webinar in terms of sustainability, solutions-oriented journalism, stuff like that. And the good thing is here, there's so many resources out there. You have the Reuters Institute at Oxford University. You have covering climate now in the US. You have Bonn Institute in Germany, driven by Deutsche Welle. A lot of stuff that is available, and now it's our task really to assume also our responsibility towards society at large. All right, that was it for me. Thank you very much for your attention.